Sync is good. That's good.
Keep your eyes on Shaz and Big Goose, the support for the Los Angeles Gladiators.
Can I pause with spacebar? Oh, you bloody ripper. All right, good. Can you get rid of this mouse? Still pretty quiet. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. I've got all my audio maxed, so hopefully if I didn't say anything, you'll still be able to hear it. Maybe I can turn down my mic a bit? Yeah, maybe that will help. All right. Turn stream up a bit. I can't, fam. It's a full. My whole computer's a full. I'm on OBS. Yeah. Yeah, what's up? Yo, fam, I don't know how to do that. Come on. I don't know what that's about. Turn the mic down. Yeah. Come on, man. I don't know that shit. All right.
There we go. Now the cheers start to come down. We saw them walk away with a big win on day number 1. Please welcome back to the main stage, the Los Angeles Valiant.
We started walking them all out as a group
Looked like a much stronger team than we expected. They added on
instead of individually.
and they really shocked everybody with their day 1 victory.
I think they did. It was a shocking victory over
I am
the shot,
turned
but I
down
think they were boistered by the
even
fact
more.
that they didn't have to play quite so many consecutive
Bitch, still trying to
games.
equalize
That
video
said,
here.
They made obvious upgrades in certain positions. We look at Soon and Ungo, who are
Thanks for follow,
incredible
AVRL.
players. You could see that they had maintained that same level of synergy as well, and it really did help them get over the finish line.
Speaking of soon, speaking of Unco, how have the Frenchmen helped this team, Hex?
Well, I thought it was a really smart roster move. Even though the roles that they play are necessarily filled on this team, you just bring on the talent when you get a chance like that. Unco right now is 3rd in all of Zenyatta's in both offensive and defensive.
This is just
assists
desk
per 10
stuff.
minutes.
It's still
He's
good to
ahead
have,
of
but
every
I'm probably not
complete
going to comment too
Zenyatta
much on it
behind
because
only
I'm a
players
bot
like
on the
Shaz
analyst desk.
And Banny. However, Soon is also tied for 2nd in solo.
No, I'm good,
kills,
Papa. How are
which
you,
means
bro?
he's out there and he's finishing those
Miss your
kills
face,
on
mate.
one clip, doing some freelancing.
Nice job at
We
All
should
Star.
remind everybody, agility's too young for the roster today, but we are going to see a new face. Numlock will be joining the squad. We'll talk about him later. For now, let's introduce the LA Gladiators.
So like we knew that Numlocked would play that day, but we didn't know when. So it's like, oh yeah, Numlock's going to play. And then we're like, well, we don't really know when that's going to be, but you know, it'll happen. It's not always a relevant point until we know he's getting subbed in, but we don't really know until just before the game. That's all good, Papa. It has been pretty hectic during the period of All-Stars for us. So glad at least you got to see Monty.
Here comes the Congo line of support.
Look how embarrassed the Finnish guys are with what they're doing. It's so funny.
At the front of the line, Monty.
I think we all loved what we saw.
Shaz and Goose are like, I never signed up for this.
The amount of picks he was getting on the Zenyatta. And this has been an interesting and I think intelligent way to build this team. Take the support cores from Giganti.
Nah, Meep
Go
just
ahead
can't take
and
the banter,
pull
Mushu,
in
that's why.
Vishu, and iRemix, who have played together on previous rosters, so you get some of that built-in synergy heading into the starting matches.
Now, I told the boys, Mr. Big Goose as well as Shaz, that Taimu is my favorite Finn, but they are officially number 2 and 3 right
Linkser,
behind him.
come on.
Call Linkser, he's
Oh,
crying.
Number 4, we're working on it, Linkser. You're climbing the ladder. Asher, though, was definitely my player to watch from day number 1. His Tracer alongside short
Asher's so funny.
characters working incredibly
He's
well.
hilarious,
Keep
man.
your eyes
He's
on
just,
the tank duo as well.
he's relentless.
And Bishu, though, when I looked at
I was
that
hoping to see you did that
guys,
Ziz pose and I did Ziz. I'm not feeling up to it. I haven't been at the gym in a couple of weeks because of sickness, so nah, not really feeling too schwal.
Just the preseason, you don't want to exasperate an illness at all. So you have to imagine you've got Remix in there. There's going to have to be someone who flexes onto it. It's very likely going to be Hydration, who has played at least Roadhog.
Consider this an
before in that
intro.
role. Maybe they'll run some solo tank, but you have to make
Pew!
adjustments.
All right, let's take a
Damn.
look at the big picture here.
Good crowd,
Monty,
though.
As we have the Valiant matching up against the Gladiators
what
for
we
the
want.
first time. This is a rivalry we are looking forward to developing here in the Overwatch League.
It's not, that's right. It's not a rivalry until it becomes a rivalry. You can't just say it's a rivalry because they're both from
I
LA.
think it depends on how we're going to see the substitutions play out. Again, it is preseason.
How
so
Monty got away with wearing that, I'll
take
never know. I wish I could wear
every
that.
Map individually based on the rosters that are
OG
fielded
Small
and
Timer.
glean
G'day, thanks
information
for the
from
follow.
that. But I think the Gladiators do have a stronger lineup going in.
We'll start
even without Bishu.
stopping
We
and
saw they had
starting,
a lot of natural
guys,
synergy developed already,
soon.
and they created the biggest upset so far.
tried
in
telling Monty
preseason
what to wear.
by
Are you
beating
kidding me?
Spitfire.
Even the stylist learned quickly enough that he couldn't tell Monty what to wear. No, I just wish I got styled in the same way he did.
Absolutely difficult.
I like his
Diva's one of
outfits.
those heroes that you either really
No one
love
tells
playing
Monty
if
what to
you're
wear.
good at it, or you kinda just
Shit
play
just
if you're
don't
not
work.
very good at it. So it's going to be interesting what their compositions look like here. They don't necessarily have a second tank player. You can run a Roadhog, but is Roadhog really a tank? He's kind of just a big DPS in a lot of situations. So they're going to have less flexibility, at least, than Valiant.
We're guaranteed to see 4 matches. I want to get the official predictions before we get this one started. If we go to a game 5,
You see how short these segments have been kept, by the way?
3-1 Gladiators.
Not much
3-1
time to
Gladiators for
do
Monty.
much.
What
We don't have
do
many
you-
assets
3-1
to draw on.
Valiant.
So
3-1 Gladiators. Who agrees
Robert's
with
looking
Monty?
coiffed af. He is, right?
Who's with Hex?
Bane O's, thanks for the follow.
Valiant
G'day.
today? It's time to
Hey,
find
split
out
the
how this
disc. I mean,
party
you can
starts.
split the
Let's
disc
send it
here.
over to our
All right,
casters.
here we go.
got Uber with Mr. X.
Thank you very much, Puckett and the desk, and it's a bit of a split opinion between our two analysts heading into this one. Again, a true rivalry isn't born because we say it's there. It's born from intense games and competition. We hope
Yeah.
this is the first chapter that we're penning.
It was clearly getting up my nose, people trying to make it a rivalry.
Yeah, we can take a look at the Los Angeles Valiant roster first. Now, this team very strong top to bottom. You know, the additions of Unko and Soon have been huge for this team, right? You have 2 really good flex supports, right? Kareev can play the Zenyatta, same with Unko. You can have Unko on the Mercy here. I think Soon, though, probably the biggest difference maker for this team.
Hey!
All right!
Big sub. Why are you subbing? Stop subbing. Thank you.
Soon just gives them a whole different dynamic.
And of course, their opponents, the Los Angeles Gladiators.
Ah, come on,
What
Mitch.
an interesting one this is. Your 4 hydration, I remix Asher, Big Goose, and Shaz.
So the problem with these graphics is that they don't show subs. You know what I mean? Zerio, thanks for the follow. They don't show the auto resubs. Oh damn. Well, sorry about that. Yeah, you fucked up, fam. It's alright. You can charge back that $4.99. These graphics don't show subs, and what I'd like to see more of, I'd like more of. I think it comes back to us on camera here, and I prefer it doesn't do that. I prefer it goes to the players. And there was a Reddit thread about it recently, and I totally agree with that. It's a matter of getting the workflow set up. So there's no subs listed on here, which kind of sucks. So we kind of had to, look at it from these players. I think it was these guys playing, because I think there's only 1 sub on this team anyway. Yeah, who they've missed out. They got remix hydration, sure for sure. Yeah, so it's okay, but
Shaz
we need
versus
more.
Unko or Shaz versus Kareev, either one of those is a blockbuster support face-off.
Yeah.
So I'm really big on highlighting the supports here because they're all incredible. Like Shaz, guys like Shaz and Zupe were like the best flex tanks in Europe, like hands down. Like Contenders was a good chance for us to observe those guys. He's insanely good, right? And then you've got like Kareev, who is very, very good in that role. Unko, of course, is one of the best. So this is like a match of, I mean, there's tons of sick players all around it, but like the flex support matchup is really good. And what I would have loved is to have maybe more resources to like highlight this particular matchup, because like you've got nutty talent on both sides here. It's ridiculous. Not even talking about any of the other players.
It's a 6 Zenyatta matchup, and then looking at the roster they're going to roll out here in game 1, and then obviously I think probably for the rest of the series, if Bishu is sick, it seems like that's been an ongoing thing, and they've been practicing.
That's right. Bishu's not on here. He is. I guess they must have put this together. Bishu was ill at this time. He actually does end up playing, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think we talk about that.
A lot with the triple DPS. You saw them give the London Spitfire a lot of problems with that triple DPS the other day. So looking to see a lot of triple DPS comps come out from the Gladiators.
I've adapted the Monty pose here. You can see hands behind the back because I'm just sick of not knowing what to do with my hands and then have one hand like dangling. Like sometimes I had look like a fucking waiter sometimes. So this is a safe pose here for me because no one has to worry about. I could be flipping you all off right off camera. Standing up and casting is still something I'm getting used to. I'm being on camera for so long. Like, you know what? You could just have us on the camera for like 1 to 2 seconds at the start of an entire series, in my opinion. And like, yeah, okay, we're dressed up. We've got a thing behind us. Cool. All right, that's fine. This logo doesn't even look scented. Anyway, but then you could just, get me some sweeping shots of fans, of the crowd, of the players. Let's get the players as they interact with each other. I don't know what's happening on the screen, on the actual stage. Maybe there's like technical people. There's a lot of refs in there plugging and unplugging things, and maybe they can't. But it'd be nice if they could, right? Because I'm happy to be off camera, bro. I can sit down on my little stool, because I have problems with my stance. Like I stand on the outsides of my feet, and I don't have intersoles right now. So standing up for like long periods of time actually hurts my back. So I'm happy with no camera time. This is like, I just want people to know that this is not us casters asking for more camera time. Like you'll notice we don't even have our Twitter handles in our lower thirds, right? Just for those people who obviously made comment about it on Reddit in the past. I don't care. I don't want to be on camera. It's not about me. Although I like what the starters gave me today. It was nice. Simple. Better than the nonsense I normally wear.
Hydration can also go over that Roadhog.
Yes, but I wonder what other flex tank openings are actually there, especially how strong Diva is in the meta right now. But let's have a...
Jeez, I'm theatrical, aren't I? Look at my facial expressions. It's crazy. I'm into it. I'm feeling it, obviously. Like, and this is fine. It's fine to be engaged, but I'm very animated on camera. This is why I'm keeping my hands behind my back sometimes, because sometimes I start doing this on camera and really trying to enunciate my point. And it's okay, but it's just not nearly necessary. It's, yeah. So hands behind the back are good. Yeah, it's a bit quiet because for some reason the audio, like the fucking audio is just really low. So, yeah. All right. I talk with my hands all the time. In fact, my best casting comes when I'm using my hands, because I feel like I'm far less trained in my being expressive, right? Yeah, so, but it's a bit much. Sometimes I wear rings as well. I wear a couple of rings, and when I'm talking, it's quite a lot. It's always like, me just like, in your face and stuff like that. So, I do use my hands a lot off camera. I do this a lot, and I do like a rap thing. I don't know. I'm glad we're not showing too much of me on camera. Anyway, let's carry on.
Look at our maps for this series today. We're going to be kicking off here with Dorado. Following that, Anubis,
sent me instructions
Oasis,
on Discord if you want to take 1 minute. Okay, tell you what. If it's going to make this better, let's do it, right? Let's try and fix this up. Thanks, Mitch. I'll take your advice and I'll see if I can't just fix this. Let me just do this. Hey, what's up? Let me just do that. And my man's hit me up on Discord, so. Okay. I have OBS. Hold on, wait a minute. I don't know how well that's gonna work, fam, because I don't have that. I have like the initial OBS. It doesn't have that stuff in the mixer. Unfortunately, it doesn't go in a sources window, if that makes sense. Yeah, just OBS, not OBS Studio. Anything that means I don't have to start the stream again will be fine. Hold on, let's go audio. Can I add a filter to the audio? Well, I'm sorry we have to go through this, guys. I'm just trying to get it sorted out. Desktop boost. There we go. Desktop boost. I'll try that. Looks like it might be a promising one. Anyhow, we'll see how that works. Might not work, but it only gave me an integer. Here's hoping. Okay.
finishing off in the German oak forest.
Eichenwald. And then I know the Los Angeles Valiant, they have some subs that they can
So the map pools are all like fixed here.
Reality and Verbo already, so you know they do not have
Does
to
it work?
play
Yes, I got it right.
Unlock,
Let's
though,
go.
will play at some point during this series.
Make some noise, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into game.
All right, so this is like the part, like what I'm told when this comes up, which is it's really nice, right? What I'm told when this comes up, I just like to get into the game moments. I try and get a little bit of energy going, get people with the thunder sticks going on, just trying to make it happen. Try not to make it, like try to keep it authentic and keep it going. I hate the set map pools. Personally, me too. I don't like it. There are people much higher up than me who for some reason really hate map draft, like for no reason that I can understand. Well, they've got some reasons, but I don't think they're very good. So, yeah, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you on it. Like, I'm not going to lie, I agree.
Our first series of the day is sure to be an absolute rip snorter.
Rip snorter, okay. Calm down, Mitch.
And of course, Dorado has already shown us some interesting results thus far. Some teams have really struggled, Matt, to get past this first checkpoint, whereas others tend to breeze through fairly comfortably. A lot of snowball potential, especially as you hit that second stage. But I mean, we saw a good example. Boston Uprising struggled to push through the NYXL, especially that arch up there. Put a Widowmaker.
For the record, we've been informed that we need to, whenever we can, refer to New York as NYXL or New York XL and never as New York Excelsior. So maybe they realize that their name is not great or something. I don't know. So we got a map fly through here. Now, while I'm casting this, I'm not always sure whether this is going to go through the whole map for us or the fly through will only continue as far as it takes the players to get into game. So sometimes I feel like I can sort of do a little bit of tactical talk on this particular map. Sometimes I feel like I can only just throw some anecdotes in and then hope that the timing lines up properly.
Right on that.
No, like the Excelsior's PR department requested it. So, you know, you do what you got to do.
It can be hard to catch her and bring it down.
I was just going to say it was really the Widowmaker that was giving Bob.
So this is general
trouble.
talk
You know,
for
they
us
just kept sending
over this map.
Casper after Pine. We're not able to get him out of that position. You expect Surefour to be the one who's going to take up Widowmaker responsibilities for the Gladiators. then on the side for the Valiant, we'll see, who goes.
So we're discussing expectations now. We're trying to lean a little bit on our experiences of previous games. So we're trying to tie historical data into this pre-match. Now, ideally, in the future, we have a lot more data and we have a lot more information. We have stats and we have, stuff that we can talk about, because what we want to do is give people a historical basis for this match, which obviously for this one there actually isn't really historical basis. So right there I use an example of two completely different teams playing on this map, because we just didn't have it for these guys really in the best way. So we're trying to set a scene with the very limited amount of information that we have to do that, and so you will notice that some of our anecdotes are a little bit generic at this early stage.
It's over to that Widowmaker, but Widowmaker we've seen a ton of so far this weekend.
Fun fact, Matt. The actual
Okay, I fucked this up pretty bad, but let's listen anyway.
Battle of Los Angeles
Matt kind of fucks me on this one. It's a fun fact.
occurred in 1942, where basically anti-infantry fire, about a ton of ordnance,
It was anti-aircraft fire, but okay.
was fired into nothing because the United States Defense Force felt like they were going to be under attack. This is definitely going to be a lot more exciting. They'll give you the big hit.
So Bria Baccarat. So basically the Battle of Los Angeles is actually a thing, right? And it was basically, I think it was during the Cold War, during the Second World War, and I think people got very spooked around the LA area and thought that they were going to be under imminent attack by aircraft, and so their anti-infantry guns fired a shitload of ordnance into thin air, and it didn't actually connect with anything, and people died purely from the commotion and the panic that was caused in Los Angeles as a result of this anti-aircraft fire. So I fucked up my analogy. It was actually going to be a bit of fun, though, to try and say that this was going to be more interesting, the Battle of Los Angeles. But maybe it's not relevant. This is just one of those things you've got to kind of try and see how it goes. I could have executed better. Matt also made it hard for me. Matt just fucking gives me a look like, don't do this. I'm not going to help you on this at all. So I've got to think a little bit more about that. I try and have some color, something interesting or fun or, about the theme of the game. We're going to have a theme of the game. Anyway, yeah, history lesson. Well, I didn't deliver it very well. It wasn't anti-infantry fire. It was anyway. Point is, tried to do something there. Tried to make something fun out of it and keep it lighthearted. Maybe some historical context. If we can learn something every day, then we're doing well.
Actually going to be in opposition here.
Sounded quite grim the previous.
Yeah, see, Matt's it sounded quite grim. It's shut up, Matt. Let it go and carry on with the cast. It doesn't need to be critiqued by him, but that's his role in our casting duo as well. He is the straight guy, so his job is to kind of give me shit for being ridiculous, and that's kind of what he does. Isn't Monty the history teacher? He is. Me and Monty are very similar though in kind of the way we think and what we find interesting. So you might find that some of our styles start to seem a bit similar as time goes on. So we spend a lot of time together as well, and we have a lot of conversations. So yeah, we're pretty similar in a lot of ways. Oh yeah.
Battle of Los Angeles.
Yeah, there really wasn't much going on. It was kind of, it's not as bad as the Great Emu War.
Yeah, see, now I'm just okay, well, you throw me out there. You've said basically Matt has said your anecdote is kind of shit. And I'm it was actually okay, Nah. And then I try and justify it with the Great Emu War.
Australia, but still.
Which is a lie.
It happened.
Nah.
I reference the Great Emu War, which actually happened.
It's debatable.
And Matt says it doesn't happen. That's normally what he does. That's his humor.
Playing the Widowmaker for the Los
We're
Angeles
working on it.
Valiant here is, maybe they run out with the... Okay.
Mushu, it wasn't too
Alright,
bad.
we're going to see Diva and Roadhog here at the beginning.
So quickly, Matt's going to call out what we're seeing because there's a few changes at the last moment. And we now have a window of 10 to 20 seconds max to start to do some early theory craft and set the scene here in terms of these compositions. So we've seen the Diva come out here. Let's see, we're going to sort of discuss. I am sick, in case you can't tell, but I wanted to do this because I'm really sick of sitting inside my apartment in quarantine doing nothing. So I'm keeping hydrated with some millennial water. #ad. And I cleaned my apartment today, so I'm trying to do something. All right, so let's see how well we set up this interaction between the compositions, because there's no play-by-play to be had in the first few seconds.
For the LA Valiant, soon will be on Tracer. See how they go around playing on this comp. Okay,
so what we want to avoid going forward is speculative. Well, okay, so you could be speculative here because you want to try and give your opinion based on what you've seen. We're supposed. Sorry. My Amazon Alexa's talking to me. If I ever say anything that sounds like Alexa, she's going to respond. So we don't want to be too speculative because there are a lot of casters say it would be interesting to see what would happen here, or let's see what's going on, and that's a filler phrase, and it's more based on you just kind of being lazy. Maybe not lazy, but again, if we're going to be speculative, we can, but we need to be, you be a little bit more specific. This is a VOD for casting. I'm not really going to review their strats because, well, there's a couple of reasons. I'm not an analyst, and I would rather analyze myself in what I do than anyone else. So I feel like if someone comes up to me and says, can you review our team scrims or something like that, I can do it. I've done it before. I've done it for some Australian teams. But I don't review other people without them requesting it, you know what I mean? It's not really fair. It's just coming and like, oh, this guy is shit. So I just do me and try and get better. And hopefully those that are in the chat that are kind of into the casting side of things, maybe we get something out of it. So let's see how we establish the scene.
Triple DPS for Los Angeles Gladiators, so perhaps not such a big surprise.
Why, Mitch? Tell them why. Tell them why it's not such a big surprise. Now, because Bishu's not here, that's why.
Now, Reeve is going to be on the Mercy here. That's going to leave Unco free to play the Zenyatta.
That is an interesting point, just because Kareev and Unco are both big flex players. And, you know, deciding which one of those has to play the Mercy is interesting. Big Goose is more of like the Lucio main support player, so it's no surprise to see Shaz on the Zenyatta here. Thank you, Zoko. I appreciate it.
Either one of those supports, of course, are, you know, at the top of their class when it comes to playing Zenyatta or Ana. So
if I can get that sentence out without a and a pause in there, it's good. I'm probably just searching for the right way to express that thought correctly.
Perhaps we'll see a bit of a mix-up later on. Silk Thread's going to be on the Widowmaker here, but Los Angeles, they're sitting so far back.
So I want to identify first that there's something that we're not used to seeing, right? And we're sort of talking about people's roles a fair bit, but most importantly is that we've identified that LA are not playing close to the choke. They're sitting a long way back, which is interesting. Again, like they're probably looking to try and play around that Widow as much as possible. They don't want to get dived on. They're playing triple DPS here as well, so maybe they want to give themselves the room to flank safely. The further back you're going to be sitting here as well. Like if you play more around the courtyard, someone like Asher or Hydration is going to be able to flank a little bit easier and not be right in front of the enemy's spawn. That might be an idea, but we're just trying to identify this now, that this is not standard.
Not mounting an early point defense at all.
Yeah, I was saying they're not giving him any line of sight to make a play here.
So there you go. So Matt's trying to tell us sort of why that's happening. So that's what I want him to do. Like it's not really, I don't want to sort of be the one all the time saying why. If Matt can tell us why, then that's pretty good.
With that solo tank, just waiting for Remix to just jump in there, and then you have the Tracer and you have Genji.
So it kind of gives you the feeling they want to play more around this choke and get aggressive. And Matt kind of pointed out that LA didn't want to give. Oh, so the Gladiators, I did this a lot this game, by the way. The Gladiators don't want to give the Valiant too much of a sight line early on. Yeah, I call them both LA at some points in the game. Obviously, that's an error because they're both LA.
For the Gladiators, Hydration playing the Genji, Asher playing the Tracer, so...
Again, so, I mean, Matt goes back to talk about their team comp here, which is okay, but maybe we're past that point now, and maybe we need to start talking about what what the Gladiators are trying to create here.
To see them just get right into the fray is Sherfor. He's already built up a decent amount of damage. He's 91% already towards his ult.
A lot of payload progress has already been made here.
Thanks the same for the follow.
Having a whole lot of front-up presence. They're actually not...
Front up presence is incorrect. I'm probably looking for like front line presence or something like that. Front up, obviously, it doesn't make any sense. Thank you, follower car, for the follow. You notice that my pace here is slow. It's a slow pace, and I'm kind of talking a little bit like this, and maybe we can go back and listen to it. But as well, I'm not. Again, the observer is showing us setups and people kind of trying to flank. So I'm not really trying to hammer anything home right now until the fight starts to happen. Now, Asher, you could sort of see here, like, Soon's trying to get some free damage on Asher. He's actually got Hydration dashing towards him at this stage, I think. It's hard to see, but maybe there might be a bit of, discussion here. Because, again, Asher might be trying to get around the outside of the Valiant as they've sort of pushed in and forced them into a choke scenario.
Not taking too many casualties at all yet. Soon's going to get Swift struck.
Swift struck, I don't know other way to put it. So he gets out, Fate gets pulse bombed here. So already this LA trap is springing perhaps, but the payload's already made a lot of progress.
Back away as the shield has dropped down there. Fate's already dropped down, so Shorefall gets the killing blow, and Asher actually employs a pulse bomb on that Diva mate. Which is something like...
Not the use of the word employ there, it's just a mix up. So I don't have to use, uses pulse bomb. That's all it really means. It's not anything special.
I enjoy. It's worth getting rid of the Diva mech for that. And Hydration finally...
And I've also mentioned here, pulse bombing Divas is okay. I see so many people in chat guy like, oh, pulse bomb the diva, lol. Like, yes, fucking pulse bomb the diva. Get her out of the suit. It's worth the use of that ultimate if you can snowball a fight, especially when you have, especially when you have any sort of hit scan presence or anything like that. Like, there's a Widowmaker on there, like Gladiators, right? Like, giving diva out of the mix is big.
He chooses this moment to spring forward. Soon is headshot by Shawford somewhere in the periphery. So Los Angeles Valiant coming out with very little early on.
So I'm sorry. So soon, like, gets headshot by Shawford. That would have been quite a big kill, but we don't catch it, right? And that's fine because we can't catch everything. So I will mention it, and I'll mention that it wasn't on camera, but I'll obviously try and keep my focus more on what we're seeing.
It's interesting, you know, from the Gladiators, it seems like they just kind of put Remix on the payload to contest, and there was never really a push that came through from the Valiant. They just kind of like sat there, just kept taking damage. Asher was able to get a pulse bomb. Surefour gave his team all that vision that Widowmaker can do with her ult.
So again, we have an establishing observer view here, where we're sitting over the fight just to see where LA is set up, and obviously, you know, astute viewers would have recognized Surefour sitting in the back, and it's going to be a focus here. And Asher obviously taking damage early.
Now you see the Gladiators, you have the Transcendence, you have Valkyrie coming in the next fight, same for the Valiant. So we'll see how both of these teams...
So Matt does this a lot. He sits on, he talks about ultimate economy a lot. It's something that Matt, I think, is particularly interested in. And I let him just go for that. He definitely defaults to that a lot at the start of a lot of fights. He really likes to do that. That's fine. And I don't really talk too much about ult economy. I let him do that. I like talking about ult economy as long as you don't just say who's close to ultimates, but maybe talk about how that shapes the next fight. And I think something that a lot of casters do, I think something that me and Matt do sometimes as well, is that we call out ult economy as if there's just nothing else to say, and then we maybe don't use that to inform a discussion or a very quick projection of how we expect the next fight to go. It's not always easy to do, and sometimes you don't have the time to properly simulate, you know, mentally a team fight that could occur. But I think we can do a better job of linking the idea of ultimate economy to how a fight's going to play out.
Play around their support ults. Hydration quickly going for a reflect there, realizing Envy was very close by. Didn't have the chain hook available. Fate looked like he was trying to quickly charge up his next mech, but Hydration is going to cut that attempt short. A swift strike. Fate is shuttled back to spawn. Now, Valiant are making minimal progress even still. However, now this is where we start to see a critical mass achieved. Big ultimates are online for both teams. Right,
so if I'm going to say... So I say that. So I did exactly what I said that I prefer not to do. But again, I'm not the analyst in this combo. So it's in the future, it'd be cool to like take my idea of that like critical mass, right? My point is that like we're getting to the point where everyone's got ultimates. We're going to have a pretty messy fight right now. Can you predict how a fight goes when there's 8 ultimates on the field? Maybe not. But you know, that's something that we could, that as me and Matt are very conversational, we become more conversational as time goes on. That'd be cool, like a hook to pivot off of and to start a conversation about how the fight could go.
Fatal switch off of Diva, go over to Winston. So trying to get a little bit deeper into the opponent's backline here as the whole hog is on the table for the Valiant. Surefour, though, able to take out Fate right at the beginning of the fight. So the Valiant going to have to back up here. You don't have that main tank to push on through, and it's been a few fights in a row where we've seen that happen.
So what you'll notice here is that Matt is quite competent at providing play-by-play for situations that are maybe not too intense, right? So right there, obviously, there was some stuff happening. I guess I just brought up the question of ultimate economy. Matt, what he does, he then talks about the fact we've seen a switch Fate over to Winston now. His only justification for that was, you know, Fate trying to go a little bit deeper into the back line. Now, could we have built off of that one? Possibly. He talks about, I mentioned the whole hog for Envy. And then he sort of covers some play-by-play because there's no point in him talking for a couple seconds. So we're probably going to end up becoming a bit more of a hybrid pairing in the sense that I already do a lot of talking about color stuff or do a lot of analysis as I try and slip it in with my sort of casting, and Matt is good enough to sort of come forward and provide some play-by-play when he has to. But it's not like me and ZP where we're both like going nuts, you know, in turns. Matt will never be going nuts, but he'll be able to fill gaps of play-by-play where maybe it's needed, or perhaps there's just some things that need to be drawn attention to.
Surefour playing on the low ground here, so not actually sitting too far back up on the arch like we saw, you know, Pine.
I feel like this is pertinent that Surefour is playing on the low ground purely because it indicates perhaps a bit of confidence coming forward. There's a minute 25 left in the round. Normally you sit right back. Surefour's playing up against not only an enemy... yeah, like he's playing up against the enemy Winston, but he's not having to deal with like an enemy Genji or another Widowmaker for that example. Perhaps he realizes that. So the only real threat to him is maybe a Winston jump on him, but he can just grapple out, right? It's not a problem. And maybe soon on the Tracer. So I feel like it's cool to bring this up, but I don't know how well I probably could justify it a bit better. I don't think I link his positioning to the composition of Valiant or the game state. And maybe I just don't have enough time, or maybe I'll just move on to something else.
Try and go for earlier on. Again, playing fairly close. Kareev gets cut down. Again, you can't give this guy sidelines. If you give Shawful an inch, he's going to take a country mile.
Right, so, you know, a little bit of burst of excitement there. It's a big shot. It's going to completely shut down the Valiant. Looks like that was all Shawful was looking for. He's going to back away. You know, and that, what you're hearing there, that loudness is about 60% for me, right? For some people, that's 100%. So, again, it could be quite intense, but you've got me bringing up the atmosphere, crowd cheering. We're going to have a break now, and I try to slow it down. So I said, give this man an inch, we'll take a country mile. Country mile, by the way, is just like a longer mile than a normal mile. I don't know where the expression came from, but give him an inch, we'll take a mile. I use that a fair bit, maybe too much sometimes, but again, give him an opportunity and he'll break you open.
It's interesting he's playing on that low ground because the Valiant don't have a Genji on their squad
there
right
you
now.
go. So Matt has come to my rescue, or he's at least supplemented my point by talking about why Shawful would do something like that. And that's good because our observer's been watching Shawful for the last 30 seconds. So we're developing a discussion about the way he's playing and not just what he's doing, but why. That's nice. I'm really glad Matt brought that in here. This is why I think people underrate Matt a lot. He's a better player than me, first of all, and he plays the game more than I do. And he did a good job to call that out.
Of a Widow, so what are you going to use to get up to this high ground, a challenge Surfboard if you can get up in this position? I guess the 76 can kind of, you know, put some shots at range. You know, with a Widowmaker like Surfboard, you'll take that fight any day against the Soul.
MP forges forward, goes for a whole hog. Has to make something of this. Remix has already been taken down there.
I'm a little bit unsure about what the Valiant are trying to do, I think, just backing off and such. The whole hog obviously didn't achieve what it was supposed to achieve. Well, yeah, Matt's not supposed to be the hype guy. He's supposed to be distracted. He's literally supposed to be the guy that makes our cast bearable when I'm too hype. What he always says to me is like, you do your thing and I'll try and work around that. You know, he's very supportive in that regard. And he adds a really, really important counterpoint to my casting. Here's the thing, right? You're going to hear a lot of me this season. I'm going to be casting 3 days a week. You're going to hear a lot of me. And the last thing I want is for people to get sick and tired of hearing this guy yell all the fucking time. And that's a personal thing. I need to, you know, again, I do need to work on my pace. And I do need to work on how excited I get. But if you're going to be able to listen to me like 3 days a week, 4 days a week, whatever it's going to be, then there needs to be a balance here. Otherwise, you are going to get so sick of hearing me. People already are. People already have. I know that. And like, it's hard for me because I like to try and, you know, make sure that, you know, that you can sort of listen, that you can sort of listen to me and hear me, and like that. And I agree with Froskuren's idea of that as well, that a huge contrast in energy can make things sound off. But Matt comes up to meet me fairly well, and I need to work on sort of meeting him at the same level. So I've cast with Frosk before as well, by the way. That was an absolute pleasure. She's a consummate professional. Not sure you can comment, but what do you think about this whole ZP drama that occurred after Semwa thing? Well, people don't know why people are and aren't getting jobs, and people are also assuming some people aren't getting jobs, and they're not necessarily correct. Like, they're making assumptions. I think it's like, I stay out of it because honestly, like, people are mad, and I get it. But at the end of the day, like, if hard work got the job done, then again, you'd see that reflected all over the casting world. There is a very good reason. So here's the thing. If people aren't getting jobs for the Overwatch League straight away, there is a very good reason for it. And I've said, why don't they tell everybody why? Because they've been given reasons. You wonder why they've been fairly quiet. That's why. I can understand more than anyone else, by the way, that seeing someone with prestige getting picked over someone with passion is a frustrating thing. That was me. I was the passionate guy. I was the only guy to get, you know, hired for that first opening of the Overwatch League with less than 140,000 followers. I have 10,000 followers. Now, if Blizzard were really interested in prestige over passion, then I wouldn't be there either. There's a very good reason for their decisions. And it's very, very easy. By the way, it's super popular. It's super easy to hate on Blizzard, right? It's the same way when I work for ESL. It's like, yeah, just shit on the big guy. You know what I mean? He's you know, he doesn't care. They don't care about the community and blah, blah, blah. It's like, honestly, like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I don't work for Blizzard, by the way. I'm a contractor. I can talk shit about Blizzard if I want to. If I see something I disagree with, I can. And I would. Someone like Monty, for example, has done this. He's been shitting on Overwatch League team's branding since the very start. We have freedom of speech. There are some things that we choose not to mention, and there are also some things that we just cannot be bothering getting involved in. You know? People see these casters, but there's much more to this job than just casting. That's all I'm going to say. That's the last thing I say on that topic. Anyway, let's carry on. So let's now work on from how Shore4. Let's work on from how Shore4's setting up here and see how we sort of put the rest of the story in, because I got a little bit confused about what was going on over here with that whole hog.
Going to be rezzed out. Fate comes back up, and so does Remix. So both Winstons are on their feet. Hydration has a Dragon Blade. He's looking for the opportune time to go for it, but this is drawn out of Transcendence. It's going to be hard to push damage across the line with so much healing available.
Okay, so this is something I like to do. I've been working on at the while at the moment. Is like talk about what's happening, but why? Why is Hydration not getting kills with that Dragon Blade? It's like there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of talking happening there, but. Let's go back and sort of see what it is that I'm trying to refer to now in this play-by-play, because I'm trying to not just let it be play-by-play.
Oh, hog. Let's make something of this. Remix has already been taken down there. It's surely going to be rezzed out. Fate comes back up, and so does Remix. So both Winstons are on their feet. Hydration has a Dragon Blade. He's looking for the opportune time to go for it, but this is drawn out of Transcendence. It's going to be hard to push damage across the line with so much healing available. At least Hydration keeps himself alive. Both teams have traded out Zenyatta ultimates. Transcendence is down on both sides of the field. Hydration just taking...
So I point out there that obviously trances are traded out. I point out the fact that he forces a trans in that fight as well. So, you know, and also mention that at least he stays alive. So I try and keep it just outside of like, he's trying to slice and dice, he's trying to kill people, but there's stuff happening there. It's like, why isn't he killing people? Why isn't this working? What's the reasoning in this? He forced a trans. That's great. If you force a trans to the Dragon Blade, thumbs up to you, bro. You've done a good job. That's what you want to do. That's a worthwhile trade any day of the week. Same as pulse bombing a diva.
A couple steps back now, heavily threatened by the presence of Roadhog.
So we're still on Hydration. I'm going to keep trying to commentate this from Hydration's perspective, because it makes no sense to viewers if they're not seeing the whole picture for me to talk about what's happening on another monitor or outside of this fight.
And Winston, not much he can block from there. Again, quickly goes for a reflect, then avoids the chain hook from Envy.
Still Threat has attack fire, so though could be huge. He's going to pop it right now. We'll see. He's going to be able to take out 2 kills.
So obviously, like, this fight's still going on, and Matt picks up the play-by-play. You can see he can do it, right? You see he's doing a fine job of this.
Nas takes down soon, but you see that attack visor being put to very great use. So it looks like the Valiant starting to make some progress, taking point A.
Okay, so there's a bit of silence here. I wanted to let it breathe a little bit. The music was already quite intense, but we just had like all this team fight, right? So let it breathe sometimes. Just let us hear the audience. Let us watch what's happening. I think it's indicative. It's already obvious. So sometimes you could just let it breathe. You know what I mean? So you notice that there's not much said.
It looks like the Valiant starting to make some progress, taking point A.
I want to hear that audience. I love that. You know?
1 checkpoint down, 2 to go.
What kind of cue do you guys give each other when you want to have an input or want to pass the stick over the codecaster? So if like normally me and Matt kind of know, it's like how we finish sentences and our phrasing, but sometimes I'll refer to him by name at the start of my last sentence of my tirade, and then he'll know. Sometimes I just point at him. Sometimes I just point at him. Sometimes we just use hand signals, you know? We're both standing up, or actually when we're casting, we are going from looking at the screen, and we're still looking at each other and talking to each other while this game is happening. We're literally locking eyes and having a conversation whilst the game's happening, because in those quiet moments, it's much easier to like build a conversation there. I can sort of see how he's going. Maybe he wants to indicate to me something that's non-verbal or something like that. Yeah, Joe Buck loves to let it breathe. A lot of people don't like Joe Buck. I think he's pretty bloody good, and I really enjoyed his biography. He's a funny bastard, and a lucky bastard at that. So, yes, let's carry on.
So, very slow start from the Los Angeles Valiant. It looked like they were racking their brains to try and figure a way to break through the Gladiators' defense. Again, it came off the back of a pick. Remix fell early to a Helix rocket. That was Los Angeles able to push through.
Again, I just said that was Los Angeles able to push through, which it doesn't actually mean anything at all. because they're both Los Angeles. But see what I do there? I let it breathe, and then again, we re-establish the game state. First checkpoint down. They're on the road, and they'll talk about why it happened. So very quickly, we refer to the fact that Remix goes down at the start of that fight. Now, there could have been a lot of reasons why that actually happened, but I try and look at like the catalyst for that fight without going into too much detail.
That is obviously the downside of only having that single tank composition. You don't have a lot of HP there left on the point for the Gladiators to come and fight it, but the Valiant going to take the fight to the high ground here, sure for you.
So there's a fight happening, kind of like a half fight, and Matt recognizes that it's just a half fight. So he takes the play-by-play because he was already making a point, and he doesn't go hammer and tongs on it. He gives it a bit of breathing. Is there a particular reason you chose this map/match? Do you go through every VOD like this? When I do it like this, I do it differently, I guess. So I'm far more, obviously I'm talking about things. When I do my own VOD review, I usually just write notes and watch. I find this is better because we're talking through things a little bit more. So it's more beneficial for me. And I honestly just chose this match because it was at the top of the page. I'd done a couple of VOD reviews in the first couple of days, but I just picked this one out. Are you guys supposed to call teams by their cities and over their names apart from this matchup? Not necessarily, because we've been told that the brand is important for these teams as well. So we've been told it's okay to vary it up as long as they don't stick to one more than the other. Avril asks, do you have a dedicated or predetermined airtime split between you and Matt? No. What we often see that happens is that I talk like 60, 70% of the time. And I'd like to limit that. And I always say to Matt, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to try and talk less today. He's like, no, dude, just do your thing, man. It's fine. Like, he's very chill about it, And I always tell him, like, if there is a problem, you got to let me know. And he's never had one. He's a very easygoing guy. He's incredibly easy to work with. Can I do a quick AMA after the map? I can. Sure. Any tips on how you control your pace and not go rap god intense endgame moments? Remember you mentioning that was something you're working on. I'm working on it. I definitely don't think I'm perfect at it. Sometimes I have a piece of paper in front of me that says slow down. Sometimes I ask Matt to make a sign like this, right? Looking at me and Jason used to do this really well. It was one of my favorite things that Jason did for me as well, was always tell me when I was going too fast. He was always right. So he just like, slow it down. Matt's getting there. Again, he's getting to a point where he's comfortable sort of taking the reins in that regard, because I want us to both be able to do that. He's generally more of a supportive role in this cast when it comes to, I guess, how he works around me. But I really want him to have agency over how we produce this product, right? All right, so let's carry on.
Switch off of Widowmaker, goes over to 76.
Discussing hero switches.
Soon. Quickly, it's going to force the Valiant to back up. Silk Thread also makes a change. Goes over to Genji here, so you want to have the Genji to get to the high ground.
The Gladiators at
All right, so, quick mention of Genji. Yeah, you have to use Genji to get to the high ground. It's okay. There's not much there. There's not much in that fight. Generally, like, the fights you want to go nutty for are the ones where you're seeing a lot of ultimates committed to. The other ones, it's worthwhile not getting excited over them, you know what I mean? Because there's not a lot on the line. There's not really high stakes Overwatch. It's just maybe a little bit of poke, maybe trying to force some ultimates out. You'll note that the Valiant probably trying to generate some ultimate percentage of their own, yada yada. Fate probably gets caught here, though. I think he's discorded.
adamant about taking his high ground control. Notice Surefour's positioning right now. He is being backed up by Shaz. A lot of healing, a lot of resources being invested.
I mean, like, you can see this, right? There's a lot of resources. Both supports are sitting with Surefour right now. Obviously, for Zenyatta to play the high ground, it's pretty nice because you're sort of safe and you can sit back and, and you can do damage like that. You can put orbs on people and stuff like that. It's easy to hit your discords, but I kind of like the idea, you know, of like talking about who's getting a lot of the resources here, who's being invested in terms of trying to make sure they can, you know, perform their role to the fullest.
Into making sure Surefour is going to be very hard to shift from his.
So this map graphic, I love the idea of having this here, and I want to get better at working around these for illustrative purposes, but this part of the map isn't great for it because there's multiple levels. Is Soon inside the church? Is he creeping up on the higher levels? Like, what level is Soon on right now? I don't know. You know, for example, I think Remix is on the low ground and they're all on the high ground, so it doesn't work here, unfortunately. It'll work around the first point, I think, but when you have verticality, this illustration, I'd rather a free cam. I'd rather a free cam from this side of the street, angled in like this, like we had before. Like we had just before. Do you always use male pronouns when casting the game, or do you ever call the Mercy or Anna as her? The pronouns I use are always specific to the player. So if there are females in game, like female players, which I have casted females playing before, God forbid, yes, you know, they do exist, guys, believe it. I always try and make sure I use the right pronoun there. For example, like World Cup last year, where Kitty was playing on the French team, I was very sure to try and make sure that I use correct pronoun there. But it's normally to the player's gender and not the heroes. Again, it's more important that we, that we indicate that, I think. But it's about the player, not the hero, because obviously we have like heroes on both sides of the team and stuff like that. You can tell how high they are by how big the icon is. Big the icon are close to. Aha! I get it. That's a very good point. I can see that now. Yeah. Well then, that's good for me. I mean, it could be a little bit tricky when you've got like, I guess he's on the lower level then. Maybe at like a glance, it's hard. Imagine's in here as well, so good. Now I can rant at him. But I love this. I love this feature. It's so sick for times like this in the fight. Excuse me. Yeah, it's pronouns interesting for females, especially in CS, like 2-woman advantage. Yeah, it sounds strange. It's just maybe because people don't use it much. Obviously, because in the past the term man was used for mankind, and it was gender encapsulating, and I think nowadays people are starting to move away from that in general, which is cool. I get that, and I'm trying to, you know, please everybody, but you can't do that all the time.
Perch. You see the position that the Gladiators are taking right now, right?
So like this is so sick. Matt is referring to this, right? So we're going to switch off this screen, but Matt is referring to this now, and he's going to hopefully set up something based on where they're set up here, because we have this map to work off. This is what I mean about working with our observers. We get this good shit, and it's up to us to make it even better. And if we fuck it up, it's bad. You know what I mean? It's not the observer's fault. The observers generally always delivers good stuff. It's like how we use it.
It's just going to be Asher.
Okay, so he's inside church. Cool.
Remix playing up top and then jumping down onto the point as well to keep the pace.
Hello? Wow, are you buffering? For real? MLG, please! What is this quality? What is this quality? It's on 1080. Hello? Alright, bear with me. I don't know why it's doing this.
Tricks here trying to get
Hello?
on top. Gets connected by Chaz there with a few Zenyatta.
Why is this? Whatever.
Recall, move on down.
That might be the opening here. Asher goes down, and he's definitely not the centerpiece of the Gladiators lineup right now in terms of priority and importance.
The reason why I say that's because Asher's playing on the low ground as a solo tracer. Again, trying to be a bit of a flanker, a bit of a nuisance, but he's not getting a lot of those resources being dedicated to him.
But having a man advantage is crucial. Tactical visor now going to be used by Shawful, but Sue's going to try and get the assassinate. He gets a stick. He doesn't find the target that he wanted, but he still gets rid of hydration. This forces Shawful to drop down, but he just falls into a transcendence. No opportunity for him to get extra damage. No salvaging this situation. Soon has scuttled the Gladiator's ship, and the Valiant are back on the move again.
And if you're the Gladiators, you hold on to these ults. You don't want to burn it.
Okay, so a couple of things I tried to weave in here, right? A few important things. So the fact that Soon pulse bombs, I think he pulse bombs, I'm sure for someone. He's pulse bombs someone, he doesn't actually kill the intended target. So I mentioned that, and then I mentioned the fact that Shawful drops down, but he falls into a transcendence, I believe. I could be wrong there. So he's off the high ground. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but all of a sudden his enemy team's healing up. Like they have healing per second. So, okay, what are you going to do? And then I should sort of, again, Fate is getting mad frags here. Like he's just cleaning up, but I'm gonna attribute this fight to Soon because he gets an early pick with that pulse bomb. I said that he scuttles the Gladiators ship. Scuttling a ship is just a term. I mean, there might have been a better, more thematic way to do it with the Gladiators, but I wasn't too worried about that. And yeah, so I saw the pulse bomb. I recognize its importance. I bring the energy up because I know this is an important fight because it was like, you have to contest, right? This is where the fight needs to happen. So actually getting picked off at the start as well really hurt them.
Any of them right now, you use that tac visor, you got nothing for it, but you come off the spawn, you're going to have Valkyrie, you have a Pulse Bomb, Primal Rage, and a Dragon Blade. On the other side, for the Valiant, all you have in terms of support ults is Kariv's Valkyrie. So we'll see if they can force that ult out.
Los Angeles can't afford, so the Valiant, should I say, can't afford to lose with
Shit, so not only do I cut him off, which is not great, but I also get like the wrong team, so that's not really great.
Yes, it's going to really kill me. They can't afford to lose their momentum.
And then I reference the fact that this is giving me trouble, so
Yeah, this is a very important part of the game. If that respawn would be nasty, so they're going to keep pushing through. Silk Thread now, keeping the train rolling straight on. finds a Dragon Blade kill on Shaz, and now they're going to back away and give a bit of respect to Remix and his flailing fists of fury now in Primal Rage.
Again, I try and avoid using they, and they back away. Like, who's they? I really need to make sure I say the Gladiators are going to, or the Valiant in this case, are going to back away.
Surely will be cut down in just a matter of seconds, but he is starting to bleed a bit of extra time off the clock. He falls. Kareem actually finds the headshot on Hydration there. A little bit of flair, of course, from a player we normally see on flex support. And that's the second checkpoint there.
Yeah,
Note that Soon is looking for anyone who spawns in a staggered manner. He's found no one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I try and add a little bit on to the end there. Matt obviously was expecting that I was going to pass to him, so he like interjects and I sort of roll over the top. Not ideal, but we want to try and, you know, work on that as much as we can.
Doesn't find anybody. Fate actually uses the Primal Rage there, and you said they needed to get aggressive, not let the Gladiators get back towards that payload. Uses the Primal Rage, goes in with Silk Thread, who also uses the Dragon Blade. And once they pick up those kills, there's nothing really the Gladiators can do at that point.
You pulse bomb a Tracer, bro. You got some big balls on you.
See a Pulse Bomb. Not connecting there, and here's going to be Hydration's Dragon Blade. He pulls it out. No support ult here for the Valiant, so they're just trying to desperately dodge the blade of Hydration. He's able to get both supports during that fight though.
So Matt takes the entirety of that fight, and I'm fine with that. I didn't interject. I didn't make any sound when he got that Tracer pulse bomb because it doesn't amount to anything, and I see he's going to be on a roll. Now let him have it because he can do it. He can play-by-play cast it. If you hear me play-by-play every fight, he's going to get bored. So I'm happy that he does this.
They're not done yet. Actually goes in for...
And now I can jump in the second half. Start with they're not done yet. So maintain some suspense, should I say.
Pulse Bomb forced to recall out, and the Valiant give it a lot of space, give it a wide berth, don't want to get taken down by that destructive power, and Asher somehow staying alive here, benefiting from Orb of Harmony healing by the looks of things. Again, knowing when to be blinking back if he needs to. The Gladiators have a lot of presence on the payload here, and the Valiant are going to have to pull out of this fight. Soon went for a Pulse Bomb, by the way.
Thanks for the follow, Icon Spaces.
Towards the enemy Tracer and Asher. That's wishful thinking indeed now as Envy sends in a self-destruct, but Asher falls to Unco.
So you see how I finished that sentence? Like I sort of end on low. So Matt knew that he was coming in. Matt knew that it was his turn to talk. Like right now, we're not seeing the fight. The fight's like happening over here somewhere. So there's no real reason for me to really keep talking. I've kind of covered what happened there. I covered the fact that LA come back into the fight, that Asher was low and was in a good position to do damage. And yeah, Mr. X has been casting Overwatch for ages. People forget that, you know. Short memories. Or a lot of people weren't watching Overwatch back then. He also did DreamHack with me. We did the grand final together at DreamHack Winter, which was over a year ago now. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Matt here.
Hydration though will take out Unco there, so you don't have the Transcendence for the side of the...
So he brings out it's important that Unco goes down there with Trans.
Valiant's going to be a Valkyrie that's popped from Big Goose. A few kills going in favor of the Gladiators.
Leak RS10. What's up, man? Thanks for following.
It'll be Kareem now, using his Valkyrie as well, bringing back Fate and Unco into the fight. Unco now is going to be able to use his Transcendence if they want. There it is.
So Matt's not referring much to Envy right now, and I think this is kind of okay because we're on board with a high mobility hero. Matt sees from the kill feed that there's 2 resurrections short space of time, so he knows that there has to be a Valkyrie being used there, and Unco. And this ties his point together because he talks about Unco dying with Trans at the start of the fight, and then he references Unco as we see him running ahead of Envy. So we're using Envy almost to allow us to be a fly on the wall right now, and allow us to sort of see what's happening in the fight as he's positioning. I really like this from the observers, actually. They're using Envy now to give us like a good aerial view of the fight, and then we backed off and we got to see it from his perspective as the rest of the team ran forward. So I like that a lot. But yeah, so this is a case where maybe you don't want to talk about everything that the person on camera is doing. Obviously, Envy's not being spectated right now because he has an ultimate or anything like that. So there's no suspense that we're trying to develop being on job with this particular hero.
Good Transcendence timing there. Fate was about to drop down.
So I mentioned, first of all, Fate almost died on that Winston. So given the Transcend was really important because Los Angeles really need this Winston to keep going forward.
But very quickly...
No, there's no indicator on the HUD that there is an active ult. You need to deduce that from the kill feed. If you see double res, you know it's Valkyrie. And with Primal, you can, if they're at 0%, if they're at 0%, it's most likely they're in Primal. They also have like smaller, they have more ticks between the health bars. So you can, at a glance, you can kind of see that that Winston has more health. At least I think that's the case.
Unco crossed the gap and gave him the healing that he so desperately needed. Soon, on payload duty, gets the stick. No damage really, no kills as a result of it there. Primal Rage was forced from Remix though. Soon, big step back, but Hydration's going to close the gap pretty comfortably with a switch strike. and a slash in towards Kareev. The Mercy's down.
Now I'm taking it here because there's a few seconds left to the end of the game. So I'll try. Hopefully I can hit a good note at the end of this one.
For Los Angeles, Valiant, and they look like they're running out of steam here. Silkred stand up on the payload and cut down by Remix. The Tesla gun just breaking through his defenses, and that's it. Shields up for the Gladiators. A solid defense to start things off here. No map completion for the Valiants.
Yeah.
Towards the end.
So I feel like the people in charge of the graphics and maybe in the cameras are confused about the winner. Now, this is a more difficult game because just by listening to, if they're just listening to me about who's winning the round, well, they're going to have the wrong idea about who's going to win because I'm using LA. So there shouldn't be green. We shouldn't have the camera on the Valiant. It shouldn't say round 1 on their desk. These are stuff that we will be working out as time goes on. This is just like people behind the scenes. Not everyone can know the game, right? These people now are understanding how the game works and how things are flowing. So hopefully this won't be an option for an issue for very long. The icon will be an easy addition. You could change it to the old icon. I think we talked about this with Team 4. We had a discussion about like status indicators on the HUD for certain heroes, and the concern was clutter. I think like we said like, wow, man, you can add like a sheen or like a glow, like Mercy when she's in Valkyrie has like a yellow glow and stuff like that. But with the amount of colors that we're using right now, it might just be a little bit too much. Might be. Back in League of Legends for a while, they used status indicators. I think they still use them. I'm not sure when they introduced like the knocked up and the stunned ones and stuff like that. And they had to downsize them a lot when they first introduced them. So yeah, like something in a status bar down the bottom, like maybe where the health bar is or something like that. We're working on it. We've had a lot of discussions about that though, so we are thinking about it.
End of that game switches over to McCree. When the other team has Tracer and Genji. McCree, obviously a fantastic hero. You put the flashbang and just the damage you can put down with.
I think the confusion is because we were following along with the Valiant. Okay, so normally we follow along the attacking teams a fair bit, all right? People have their own opinions about that. I like it. So perhaps the camera people thought because we were on the end watching with the Valiant that they kind of had to win. So we need to find a way to demarcate properly, like, because no one wins. You don't win a round in the payload, right? You win a round in like King of the Hill or Controls, I have to call it, but you don't win a round in payload. So there's probably no round win. Like, we need to find a better way to get a light show going without saying that the round's been won, because it just isn't. Yeah, lots of production flubs, yeah, but that's the way it goes. Okay.
The headshots in the hands of Surfward, he's going to make you pay for it. So you also
see this zooming around. I like this. You could do this even before the game as well. Like just look at the players, see what they're doing, open their mics. I don't know, probably don't do that, but
had some fantastic combinations, right? With Shaz playing a little bit further back with Surfward, every
Damon, thanks for the follow. B&B Tavern, I think I missed that one. Thank you for the follow, bro. What's up?
Time we saw Surfward's name pop up in the kill feed, always an assist there from Shaz on the Zenyatta.
Excuse my sniffling.
Very interesting.
Bemi Esports, thanks for the follow.
Weren't running a second tank or a
Thank you for
flex
joining
tank
us.
player in Bishu's absence. Perhaps a realization that they couldn't afford to put themselves in long, drawn-out engagements. So they opt to break line of sight, force the Valiant to come to them, and then quickly try and deliver as much of the front-loaded damage that their triple DPS lineup could provide to win fights, or at least secure early picks to force the Valiant back. That bought them so much time on that defense. So
the reason why I make this argument, right, and this is, again, to a degree, this is speculation, and I've seen a lot of people recently, and I'm not bitching about this at all. I think this is okay that people have their concerns, but people have often said, like, does Mitch know the game, or does he understand the nuances of what's going on? And I think it's a reasonable question to ask, because despite the fact that I've been casting Overwatch since the beta first started, there are some things that I'm not going to maybe pick up all the time from watching pros. I'll watch a lot of pros, but I don't play at a pro level, right? So yeah, is that a limiting factor for a play-by-play caster? Not as much, I don't think. So what I'm trying to say here is that you've got a triple DPS comp with one tank. You have 3 heroes with 200 HP or less, and when you have that sort of situation, you very much need to deliver that damage as quickly as you can, because you can get burst out, right? It can be hard to sustain healing on targets like those as well. It can be hard to follow them up with healing. So long fights with triple DPS can be tough if you're taking a lot of damage. I mean, even a Diva or Winston can burst down a Genji or someone like that. So my argument that I'm making perhaps is the Gladiators, because they're running this particular composition, want to try and get to decide the fight on their own terms, give some ground, and then hit the squishy targets as quickly as they possibly can before they're sort of overrun by a HP pool that's greater than their own. There might be multiple ways to see this particular fight. This is, again, me just trying to do some interpolation from the data that's in front of me or from the game that I'm seeing. And this is very much a qualitative analysis of what happened. This is in between round stuff, and this is still on the caster desk as well. So I'm trying to, first of all, contrast the teams and compare their approaches to the game and try and maybe use that as a justification or a reason as to why we might have the situation that we have now. So, people can disagree with me about whether that's legitimate, and it's quite possible that there's an even deeper level of analysis that we can go to here, and sort of from that maybe players at a pro level would understand far better than I would. But again, like this is me sort of doing the best with what I've got. And again, when I play-by-play cast this game, I don't go super deep on the analysis side of things, because I watch the game like a play-by-play caster. I watch it like I need to catch all this information and deliver this information. If you watch it like an analyst, perhaps you're going to be looking at things that happen and then go, why did that happen? Let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's look off camera. Let's look at, the fundamental, the little things that perhaps are hard to see. So I'm trying to give more broad strokes idea of what happens here. And this is what you're probably going to see from me going forward as well. I'm not trying to pretend like I know exactly what happened there, but again, it's worthwhile making some conjecture at this point.
Just wonder how long the triple DPS will work for them and when they will have to make a change and who makes the change we were talking about. We saw Hydration play Roadhog the other day, flex onto that hero. We've seen Surefour play a little bit of D.Va in the past.
See you, Miss. Have a good one.
So maybe we'll see one of them make a change. We'll see. It'll be the Valiant now on defense. It looks like Silk Thread will be playing the Soldier 76. Kareev will be playing Mercy here. Just kind of wondering, who plays Mercy out of Unko and Kareev. It'll be Unko on the
And I remix here.
Ben Seth, thanks for the follow.
Floors come in. It's a little bit different. First time we've seen one of those, so we've had a good run. But I remix is a player, obviously, who's really relishing being on the main stage here and playing, especially on a...
So now we have a pause, and I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. So now I'm going to try and deliver some information that I know from researching and stuff like that, just to maybe fill the time with a bit of colour.
Playing fine. Obviously, he's from Puerto Rico, and he had terrible internet for a long time. He was trying to go pro for a good deal of time, and actually got disqualified from multiple tournaments because he disconnected. He just couldn't compete.
And it's such a difference here playing on LAN on the stage, right? I know you were...
My teeth look really crooked. Interesting. I used to have such straight teeth, and then I stopped wearing my retainer. I might need to go and see a dentist.
Talking about this morning, listening to a Michael interview, Baby Bay, and they were just talking about Widowmaker and just how different it is, to be able to play Widowmaker here on the stage. I think Baby Bay was saying, sometimes you have those shots at home.
So we don't want to be on stage right now. I don't want to be on camera. This is not at all like what we want. So when people bring up they want to see more players, I agree. We could definitely do that. So it's awkward standing here. You could just give us... League of Legends, I think, puts a camera on the actual player getting his stuff fixed up or whatever. I feel like you could fly around the crowd more. I don't really want to be on camera right now. You could probably see it in my expression.
Where you swear that you connected with them, you swear it's a headshot and it just doesn't happen. Said here, he's been landing everything.
Yeah, it's a completely different environment, and we, for quite some time, with our Overwatch tournament, didn't have, access to a LAN client. We sort of had to play it on live, and again, now that that's been eliminated, now we have these servers that exist that these guys can play on. The game has definitely taken a little bit of a different shape. So for those that are just joining us, we'll catch you up on what we just saw.
So again, we had the pause. So I start off with a story about iRemix. Matt works off of it. Matt works off it with talking about how the LAN client is really different for these players, and this is just filler. We're just filling straight up. We're now relying on our reserves of information to keep this one going. I thought it was a bit awkward they would show you guys, thought it was just me. Well, I don't have a problem with them showing us for a brief moment at the start of the game. Right? It's like, hi, this is what we look like now. Don't look at us again because it's not about us. So like this, I don't want this. I want like crowd shots. I want like, I want arena shots, There is a rawhide button, yes. Normally, it's the other way around. Normally, when they crank the whip, I say rawhide right after it, and they try and keep me on my toes and see if they can catch me with it. But Doyle was calling for it. They do have a sampling board of some sounds at the back there. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Like, I can just put my hands behind my back. I normally do that here, but you can see, like, he's got arms by his side. I've got arms in front of me. I'm addressing the camera. It's fine, but we're spending a large amount of time on camera right now. It's important to know as well that this preseason, we were pretty light on assets and videos and other content and, you know, B-roll and stuff like that. We're hoarding a huge amount of it for the actual main season itself. So I hope that if this becomes an issue, we do have pauses, which probably will be limited anyway, that this isn't an issue. Because I don't necessarily want to be looking at this either. So I understand. And I don't get offended when people say show less of the casters, because it's not about us.
Los Angeles Valiant on the attacking side didn't quite get towards the end of the map, and again, this triple DPS setup.
You can see. Now here's the hands. Here's the hands.
Is from the Gladiators is how long does this last? But with a man like Shawfall at the helm, you know they're definitely going to have.
I should keep him behind my back.
We've got a little bit of footage we can check out.
Okay. Right. So I'm told here. So like this is okay. Like I'm being told here that while I'm talking, producers saying we got some footage of Shawfall. So finally they're giving us some content to look at instead of us, but they cue it wrong, I think. So I said we've got a little bit of footage to look at here. I'm pretty sure we go back in the game instead of showing the footage.
Yeah, we can take a look at, I know, some of the things that Shawfall was able to do, or maybe not, because we're actually ready to get.
They threw us into the game, but they told us they had footage.
Back into the game here.
What the hell? God fucking damn it, I hate that.
So just to remind you guys, it was point A and B taken by the Valiant. They were not
there's nothing that casters dislike more than queuing to something that's not there, but we don't throw production under the bus. No, like my hand movements are okay, but sometimes they can get really out there, right? So it's also me. I'm quite theatric. You can see like my face, like the faces I'm pulling. Like I'm really trying to tell you these words. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, but again, trying to maybe limit that a little bit here can be tough to watch. Or some people like it, some people don't. So. Okay.
I know Mitch extremely upset we don't get a chance to take a look at those Shawfall highlights.
So Matt is throwing me under the bus again here. I have like almost ripped my headset off and sworn like with my, I'm pretty sure I said the F word, like with my cough button down. Like I'm visibly pissed off that I got thrown under the bus here. But you don't mention it, right? You don't mention it. But Matt's just gone and thrown me under the bus here and said that I'm pissed off and you're gonna watch it.
But it most likely would have just been Bastion clips from Junkertown the other day on the payload.
We'll get him after the game as well. Widowmaker's been very, very strong early. Him getting picks on people like Soon, that's the stuff you really want to look out for. So it's going to be an aggressive or offensive Widowmaker here. Again, still a triple DPS setup. It feels like this is kind of in the Gladiators' wheelhouse here.
And you saw Remix there at the beginning on the Winston, jump right up on top.
Bit of a miss.
For that bubble to kind of protect him as he just takes some free fire on the Widowmaker. Seen teams attack.
Damage per 10 minutes. I think this is an okay stat. When we have more games, I suppose, but when like it's early on in the preseason, it doesn't maybe have as much intuitive value because sometimes he hasn't played Bastion for 10 minutes or hasn't played Junkrat for 10 minutes. So they just take what you have for 3 minutes and 33 seconds or 3.5 minutes, right? And they just, and they just like multiply it until it gets to that number. So the damage per 10 minutes stats only really have value when you've played at least 10 minutes of that hero. And that's why something like Winston's Lab will actually allow you to filter out results that aren't statistically relevant based on how long the player's played for. So you can sort of limit things to only players with 10 minutes or more played on this hero will be shown and stuff like that. So this stuff will make more sense as time goes on. We've got Captain Planet out the back there working his ass off with stats, so that's been really good. The average ult build-up are good stats, but what I want with them is like how that relates to the average time it takes to build up an ult. So it's like, it's like Asher's taken 40 seconds to build up his pulse bombs on average, but how does that compare to the average of Tracer players in the league over the season? So we need a point of reference for all of our stats, in my opinion. If you can't show a point of reference, then the stat doesn't have any intuitive value. So we're working on that, don't worry. For Prillis, thanks for the follow. G'day. Ben Seth, I think I called that one out. Steve Ohobo, Tythel1474. Meep the Meep, thanks for the follow, everybody, and welcome. Anyway, let's carry on. I probably only have time to do the one map before my voice starts to give out on me and I get sick again, so let's make this, let's make it worthwhile.
Widowmakers in different ways, and that is not one way to go about it.
God, the crowd sounds so good. I love it when the crowd gets nutty like that.
So you lose your Mercy right away. If If you're the Valiant, not a good start.
You've got to respect that. You know a Widowmaker's afoot. You know she's going to be looking to get these picks, and you're a Mercy. You can't afford to give line of sight. Shawful goes in for some semi-automatic fire, and Silk Thread is gunned down, and this is a huge start for the Gladiators here, making very quick progress.
So you see what happened there, right? Fate goes for a deep dive, and immediately the entirety of the Gladiators peel for that Winston. So that was really nice. So the fight starts with the first pick of Shawful. I think it was on the Kareev there, which is great. And then Remix tries to dive in to try and equalize, to get a support for support, right? He goes down, and then like the Gladiators win the fight. Now at this point, I'm thinking this could be over, but it's not, and you're about to see why.
Progress, and look at Shawful now. This is so frustrating to play against. The Valiant.
This is big brain play, by the way, from Unco.
Oh!
There it is, boys. He goes all the way around to get that frag. I don't think he pulled out. I think he had to spawn back in.
I say that, but Unco, it's a salvo. Balls to the wall, as it were. Finds the kill.
And Soon pushes all the way into the backline. He's able to take out Shaz, so when things look like they're going to be pretty bad here.
So that genuinely caught me off guard, what happened there. Obviously, because I'm setting up a narrative in my head. That's actually not, that doesn't line up with the narrative that actually happened. So I'm glad that Matt can step in here now, and he can reestablish things, and we can go back to the
Valiant, they're able to turn that fight around. It's a big pick there from Unco at the beginning, able to take out Surefour, and then Soon it's somehow gotten all the way into the backline, was able to take out Shaz.
Can we take a moment to appreciate how much out of his way Unco had to go to get into that position?
So what I'm about to do here is something that I want to do a lot more in the future, when we have time, if we have time. Give recognition to stuff that is extraordinary or out of the ordinary, or something that takes a lot of thinking or a big brain to pull off. And that's why I want to like take a moment to talk and discuss about how Unco making this play is not necessarily in the ordinary. He's gone above and beyond, and he's allowed his team with that initial pick and the forcing of the res. Now, there were other things in that fight that contributed to it, by the way. We didn't get to catch them all. The thing is, Big Goose goes for a res on Shawfall, but sort of drops down as he's trying to res. He's quite vulnerable during the animation. I think he gets picked off there. But still, I want to talk about that. I want to take a moment. Hopefully I do it justice.
Normally you just walk out of spawn, you walk out of the vault, right? But he must have gone up and around in the church and up to the top.
He had to commit to going to that spot right away as soon as he spawned, right?
And Matt builds off of that as well.
He had to have known, at least had the game knowledge that Surefour was probably going to go for that high ground up on the archway. He was going to be able to take an angle there with it.
It takes an extra 10 seconds to get there.
Smart play there from Unco. Few kills here going in favor of the Valiant.
Now, I'd be worried that we lingered on this too long if these kills weren't coming through. If these were Gladiators kills, it might be time to, again, throw another spanner in the works and go in another direction with the commentary in this fight. But the Valiant are still holding for now. Maybe there's not tons to really discuss or to lean on. So I'm feeling okay about just, continuing to heap some praise on my boy Unco.
This one, Gladiators just not going to use any ults here. Just going to try and back on out. The Valiant will take that fight. Now the Valiant are starting to build up some of their own ults, right? You're going to have a Dragon Blade here as self-destruct. You have Primal Rage already. You're going to have both support ults. So the Valiant's looking in pretty good shape so far.
Okay, what now, Gladiators? Let's cast a very critical eye over how the Gladiators try and start this next fight. They're playing a triple DPS setup, as you know, but the Valiant don't want to give them free picks. They don't want to give them a man advantage. You see a little bit of aggression coming out here, maybe a little bit too far. Fate goes in. He's getting plenty of healing right now, and Hydration forced to go for a reflex. It was all a ruse. The Primal
It's a big dick play, that.
Goose is knocked asunder off the edge. No way of getting back. And a bit of aggressive defense from the Valiant yields results in this fight. Gladiators are forced back to spawn. Again,
like when you're playing with a single tank composition, you have stuff all peel. You don't have much peel at all for your supports, right? You kind of, you lack CC in a huge way. Like amongst a Zenyatta, a Mercy, a Tracer, a Winston, a Genji, and a Widowmaker, how much are you going to really be able to do to stun or to, to put people off course or to boop in? You can't do that, right? So this is this is good from the Valiant to identify that if they have a Primal Rage here, they can soak damage, get a Harmony or perhaps for some healing on Fate, go in, just assassinate their Mercy, and then just get out, with the fact that you have that Primal Rage there. So this is a good way in which the Valiant are trying to take the wheels off of this triple DPS composition by taking the ability to decide when the fight starts away from the Gladiators, and also just gunning down their supports who will naturally lack protection. I think Shaz dies in that fight. And yeah, so obviously everyone's trying to peel for Big Goose, who's already way off on the other side of the map there, and then they can get kills on Asher and Shaz, and that should end the fight.
Once again,
Fate putting a ton of pressure on the Gladiators as Hydration's going to move on back here, just get some healing, wait for the rest of the team. Surefour will switch off of Widowmaker, so they're going to bring in the 76 for a little bit more damage, still committing to this triple DPS setup. Are the Gladiators. 1 minute 13 seconds on the clock, Mitch. A ton of ults from both sides here.
Can they punish Fate for his aggression? Do they have a lineup that can sort of mash a Winston if he goes too deep?
So again, like, it's a rhetorical question, but it's something that I'm trying to sort of, you know, make people think about. Like, what do the Gladiators actually have to shut this Winston down? They switch away now from the Widow to the 76, so they're realizing now that this fight's going to be much more about boots on the ground and dealing with pressure, and maybe just sustaining a dive from an enemy team and having extra healing as well, maybe from a bardic field. But all those things together, right? It's about being able to receive a dive, because the Widowmaker obviously reduces their ability to do so, because a Winston in your face is going to severely limit your sight lines. A bubble put over the Winston is going to make it impossible to shoot past into the rest of the team. Widowmaker doesn't do well when you don't get to dictate the pace of the game or the cadence of the engagement. Is there anything you'll feel like you'll always lean on for your topics? Like Matt talks about alt economy. And like in league, rotations is always a topic and is commonplace to discuss. I don't know. I try and keep it very varied if I can. Something I really try and avoid is like going back to the same things. People might disagree as well, which is fine. But I try and talk very much about the person on my screen. So I guess I'll lean on the information that's available to me. If I have to fill, then I'll look for color. I'll look for like kind of fun stuff that I know about the players or interactions that they've had or things that they've said or anything like that, right? But yeah, so I'm asking you guys, I'm asking the audience to think. I'm encouraging you now to decide for yourself whether this is a good composition for the Gladiators or they have enough to deal with the fact that this Winston's wrecking them. Right, we're talking about, do they have enough? What would they need to respond? Do they need CC? Do they need more burst damage? You notice that like Hydration maybe has some burst, but Asher is you know, if he gets one clip perhaps. Widow did have the burst, but she's obviously not good when you're getting dived on. Good afternoon, Cold Shower Tuesdays. So, let's see.
I think so. It's just how do you kind of bait him in yet again? And
So again, I do want to ask Matt the question because he is technically the analyst here, and he's the person that I'm confident leaning on, right?
you bait him in, maybe you can get Envy as well. It's going to be the Valkyrie pop from Big Goose, so trying to keep everybody up. There's the kill on a Fate, but it's going to be Kareev using his own Valkyrie, bringing Fate back into the fight. It'll be Envy connecting with Hydration.
Now, theoretically, that fight would have been won by the Gladiators this time if it weren't for a self-destruct kill and a pulse bomb kill. So Ultimates were committed to this fight by the Valiant. I think that was after Fate died. He extended quite deeply. I think Envy both went there. So this time, in this fight, Los Angeles managed to deal with this dive much better and had an early advantage. But a pulse bomb and a self-destruct claim kills of their own. Big Goose reses Hydration and Remix to get the back up. They're still going to be lacking the surefall factor here. But let's go back and see the start of this fight so we can sort of see how it works.
On a Fate, but it's going to be Kareev using...
Okay, we're not going back far enough. Here we go.
Bait him in yet again, and you bait him in, you maybe...
Okay, so Hydration's in the mix. Like, they're trying to peel. Right? Hydration hasn't tried to dive the enemy backline. And we have a Valkyrie used by the Gladiators here, which also could be a big factor. You can see Shaz is getting pressured by Envy. Fate is here off screen, right? So both of the tanks... Oh, Fate's just died, sorry. So both of the tanks, looks like Fate didn't quite get to where he was trying to go. So it could have been burst here from any of these other guys that took him out of the picture. I'm pointing at my screen here, sorry. So now Envy also is on his own trying to deal with Shaz. There's a Valkyrie here in play. Kareev's going to pop his in just a second.
It's going to be the Valkyrie pop from Big Goose, so trying to keep everybody up. There's the kill on a Fate.
You're right. He went for the dash reset.
Using his own Valkyrie,
yep.
bringing Fate
He gets
back
caught out
into
for
the
that.
fight. It'll be Envy connecting with Hydration with the self-destruct, but it's going to be Big Goose using the...
So Asher finds Unko here, which is really important. Kareev can still do enough healing right now, but Asher needs to use his pulse bomb.
Mercy, bringing Remix and Hydration back into the fight. Hydration still with that dragon.
Unko's back.
Back on his feet now. Both Mercies digging very deep into
There
the
it is. Beautiful stick. Force to the trans.
For the transcendence. He knew exactly what he was doing. All planned, boys, he says. And now the Valiant going to be benefiting from a little bit of extra healing.
So a lot's happening here. Both teams have used their transes. You saw that Shaz used his transcendence in response to Unko. So interestingly enough, this is a critical mass fight as well because both of these two teams have both their support ults available. Now they're both Dragon Blading. The ultimate from Shaz came out a little bit later, right? And you could see that Hydration found Unko just as his transcendence timed out. So Unko's having his transcendence forced here is less than ideal. It's not a terrible time to use it in this fight, right? I think Kareev still had Valkyrie, but he had to trans. But you notice that the Valiant weren't able to use that trance to get further kills on the Gladiators in this fight. They weren't able to use it to bolster their numbers advantage. Then Unko's trance times out. Then he gets taken down. And meanwhile, Shaz has his transcendence now in the fight. So this is important for someone like Big Goose who wants to try and benefit from that.
Hydration with the Dragon Blade, though, finds Unko as soon as his meditative reverie is broken. Silk Thread.
Meditative reverie is maybe a little bit of a cumbersome phrase to use here. It's correct. But again, it's a lot. That's a lot for people just to sort of comprehend and sort of as that sort of comes over the top there. But meditative reverie is not from anywhere. It's just a combination of words that theoretically makes sense. So hydration gets kills on Silk Thread there as well. This fight, as you can still see, it's like a 4v, well, I'm going to say 4 here. Obviously, LA spawn a lot closer, so any parity fight for them is kind of good. Meditative reverie. So obviously, meditative is, you know, in a meditative, you know, in a meditating way. And a reverie is like, I guess, being caught in like, I guess you're thinking back or you're daydreaming, if that makes sense. So when Zenyatta is using Transcendence, he's in a meditative reverie, if that makes any sense, I guess. You could say that. It's more of a color thing. So I was like, yeah, exactly. No, recalling. You know. A meditative reverie back to the halcyon era of Overwatch where you could have double Zenyatta and not just one. Anyway, so yeah, this fight's back and forth, but obviously like a man for man, it kind of benefits the Gladiators here if they can clean up.
The drop as well. That's Hydration with 2 kills on that blade, but he's still being forced back. The Valiant are back in there.
Pulse bomb.
Hydration. Some top level Tracer play in this match. But as the smoke clears, a Valiant stand tall. They stand strong, and there's 10 seconds for the Gladiators to do something here. And look at it.
So the fight breaks down, and probably the most important one there is Envy manages to get the micro rocket kill, and Silk Thread. Oh, sorry, it was Hydration. Maybe just missed microed slightly and got caught by a pulse bomb that soon didn't even manage to stick. So fortunate scenario there. What do I even know about Overwatch? You can't. I actually don't know anything that happens. Everything I know, bro, I learned from you and our drunken conversations. That's why I'm here, bro. You're the reason I'm here. More to the point, when are you getting here, bro? When are you getting here? Anyway, let's carry on. Almost done here.
And how aggressive Bait is being. He pushes all the way into the back of the spawn. He's able to get a kill on iRemix, pop primal range, get big.
Envy's going nuts right now. Like, that's so sick. They're getting aggressive.
The Gladiators will not make it back to the payload. It'll be the Los Angeles Valiant taking map number 1.
And to quote a friend of mine, William, the Valiant never taste death, but once it was a scrappy fight.
That's a quote from William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. I don't know what really made me think. I think the word Valiant, I guess. The quote is, the Valiant rarely taste of death but once. I didn't quite get it right. I mean, hey, it's true, right? They died a lot. They played aggressively. It kind of works. You know, the most Valiant people. I don't know. It was fun though. But people might not get that and just think I'm being a dickhead, right? But I'm generally trying to like build a thematic story and have a bit of fun and be eccentric and, you know, quote some shit and, you know, it's just that's just how I am. You know what I mean?
They definitely had to deal with their own mortality there on Dorado, but they spring back in a fantastic fashion. Again, perhaps, just perhaps, the lack of a flex tank on the Gladiators hurt them. You saw that Fate was able to press in with such confidence, knowing that the pick potential was limited.
I think if you're the...
Mind you, by the way, if the Gladiators have a diva to peel who just fucking shreds and micro rockets like Fate when he dives in, then your dives are not nearly as safe in those fights. Posh cunt. All right, mate. Ease up. Right, so there you go. That's the map. And what I do, the last thing I do right at the end is I tie in the idea is, was this because Bishu wasn't here? That's the storyline we're working with right now because he's such a mainstay in the team. And we're not saying that like anyone is bad because like they're not also in the team. Like it's not like we're not saying like, oh, Hydration shouldn't be there, it should be Bishu. We're just saying they didn't play a 2-2-2 at all. I played a triple DPS comp and you could see its weaknesses.
The Gladiators, you got to wonder who is going to flex over to a tank in map number 2. Will it be Hydration or Surfer? We'll find out right after this commercial break.
So Matt doesn't normally do the throws, but basically we're not cute. When this screen comes up, we have to throw. We have to throw straight away. At least our producer's like, throw to break. So whoever's talking at the time normally throws. I normally handle the throws. It's a very small thing. Matt can do it. He just wasn't quite ready for it. Yeah, no big shit for this match, but he comes back in. He's got ulcerative colitis, I think. So obviously stomach issues that cause him a lot of problems. So